Hi, I'm Amy from Following Hawks. And one of the things that I do is help people understand how to work with the spirits of the land and offer their healing energy to places in need. And one of the things I've done for many years now is offer what I call property readings, where I tune into the energy of a particular home, piece of land, community, and have a conversation with the spirits of the land that are there and ask them what's going on in a particular place and ask if there's any healing energy that's needed. So I have done these one-on-one for individuals for probably 6 or 7 years now, but about a year ago, I was guided to stop offering these readings. And so I haven't done them for about a year. Recently, I got the download to start offering them again, but in a very specific way. And that is to do a couple of them a month for people who'd like to volunteer their location and record those sessions to be shared publicly. The spirits really want this information to get out and want people to understand how these energies work, how trauma on the land works, how all of the different players that are involved. And so this is a bit of an experiment. We are going to do the first one here, and I'll tell you a little bit about the place that I'm going to connect with and read and what the person's concerns are that has brought them to me. You'll see me do the reading, which I'll speed up in the interest of time. And when I'm done, I will be hopping on Zoom with the person who suggested this place, and I'll be sharing everything that I got and receiving any feedback. So let's get started with the first session. In this case, it is an entire community that I have been asked to look at, and it is the town of Endicott, New York. So this location was suggested by Maggie, and Maggie says, there is a palpable and heavy negative energy that has impacted the town I work in since I can remember. It started in the 80s when IBM, which originated here, left the area. But I think the energetic damage goes back way further than that. The whole town has a sad, bitter, and sort of desperate feeling. The people are unhappy, the land is deeply polluted, and you can physically feel that it's different than the surrounding towns. I've definitely come across this and experienced this kind of thing before, but let's see what the spirits of the land of Endicott, New York have to say. The first thing I always do in a reading is look at a map and see what I can see, but also what I might energetically intuit while looking at the map. So let me share my screen here so you can see the map as well. And here it is, the town of Endicott. And right away, obviously, I notice, first of all, this is a very natural area as opposed to a lot of cities, even though there is a lot of development through here. But the Susquehanna River comes right through town here. So obviously this is a very large natural feature in the area, and it's just something I noticed right away. This is also catches my attention. I'm not sure what it is. It's not marked. It looks like it could be an old industrial location. So it might be something that the spirits want to talk about, but we will wait and see what they have to say. And then I just kind of zoom out and get the literal lay of the land. Ultimately, what I'm noticing here is that this is, while in a community, it is really surrounded by forest and mountains in every direction. You do have the state capitol over here. We're looking at an area, I've kind of lost it, but I think it's more in this area. And obviously you have a couple of large lakes up here as well. So those are really the only things that are catching my attention as we initially look at the map. Okay, and now I'm going to begin the reading. I tend to do a lot of automatic writing, so you'll see me doing writing, and you'll probably just see me sitting quietly as I'm receiving intuitive information. So that was a super interesting reading. I got lots of information to share, and now I will hop on a call with Maggie to share what I found out. First of all, thank you so much for suggesting and sharing your town with us. So it was super, super fascinating connecting with the energies there. But I just wanted to thank you for sharing it and being willing to connect like this and let me share it as well with others, because I've just that's really the messages that I've been getting, is like when I do this, individually, one-on-one or privately, it doesn't, the message doesn't spread in the same way as being able to share in a more public way, so that people can kind of understand, like, who are all these forces at play on the land and what's happening there and what are the different concerns that they have, or what are the things that come up over and over again. So yeah, so just thanks.
Oh my gosh, no, thank you. I was, I've lived here, well, on and off my whole life. And I was like, something's not right. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think I know someone, or a group at least, that I can reach out to, and someone that knows a little bit more about this than I do. So I'm just grateful to you for doing what you do. And then, kind of connecting with me on this. I think it's just amazing.
Yeah, well, hopefully it will help you, or some of it will resonate. Maybe it was it's always interesting to me that as much as we try not to have preconceived ideas, like I think can't help it in some ways about, like, well, this is probably what I'll find, or these are the types of things that I might come across. And and it was totally different though. There was a little bit there, but really, like, when I first tuned in and connected, and I have my notes here, so I'm looking so I don't forget anything.
Yeah.
But it was like a large eagle that came to me, and it came and it perched on top of like a very old stone building of some kind. I'm not sure if it's something that's actually in the town or not, but it was like an old building with kind of like a spire. I almost wondered, I was like, is this a church, or because it had like a spire or a steeple or something on it. But it didn't talk to me about the building, and I didn't get any more information, so I'm not sure if it was specifically important, or if that was just kind of like where it came in and perched at. But
okay,
right away, like, I started feeling like really dizzy, and this very, like, kind of looping circular feeling. And the bird took me, like, to fly in a circle and like over and over, but it was making me more and more dizzy the more that I was doing it. And they started initially talking about the river and giving me this very congested feeling. I was coughing and just feeling the congestion of it all. And just says, like, the river has absorbed like all of the energy, all of the things that have happened there. And it's, doesn't always have the easiest time clearing all of that energy, or, energetic or physical pollution or issues that happen in the area.
Right.
So it was really just showing me that, like, all this energy is like stuck in this whirling, swirling kind of energy. And initially I'm like, is this a vortex? Is there a portal here? And they're like, no, it's just like the energy is like stuck in this circular pattern. And it was showing it to me like a magnet, like all these things were like getting attracted and then stuck to it. And once you got stuck to it, it was really hard to like unstick yourself from it. You were really like in this. So do you find that to be the case?
Yes. And like, we always joke too, like, once you live here, you can't leave. And like, everyone we know who tries to move away, they end up getting sucked back into the vortex. Like, so we always jokingly call it like the vortex, or like the Bermuda Triangle of the North. Like, you just kind of, you try to leave. Like, my brother moved away successfully. He lives in Charleston. But we just always joke, like, well, it's a matter of time before he moves back, because, Endicott, like, they all come back. So it's sort of, it feels kind of like when the drain starts going, like if you ever like are taking a bath and you unplug I'm picturing one of those old fashioned plugs, and you watch the water start to spiral. It's like at the bottom of that is Endicott. And if you try to climb away, like in The Little Mermaid, she's trying to get out of that like spiral. It's like, oh no, at the bottom of that is Endicott. You have to stay here now. So
yeah. And that was definitely, I actually had to take myself out of it, because I was like, I couldn't focus. I couldn't get more information. I was just like stuck. It was like this looping, repetitive, almost like boring, like circle, that I was stuck in. And I was like, oh, like I gotta
Yeah.
get out of this, like to be able to tune in and get more information. And yeah, and then I like started yawning a bunch and I was like, yeah, it's just tiring. It's kind of exhausting. It's just kind of, it's repetitive. Like that's
Oh
how.
my gosh. If I could, everything you're saying is like, it sounds almost like you live here, because that's kind of how a lot of us that work here and live here feel. So
Yeah.
that
I felt it for sure. And I
uh,
continued to like yawn. You'll see when I put the video together, like I was yawning through the whole thing, which often happens when it's like the spirit, they just want to show me how the energy feels. And so like right away when I start doing that, I'm like, oh, it's like draining, tiring, draw on your energy for sure. And so yeah, it's like this stagnant kind of circling energy, but it was really when I got into it, it was really connected to like the metals in the ground. And they said that there were like metals that were added maybe from, industry or whatever. They weren't real specific. Sorry, my nose itches. About kind of what happened later. They did say, yeah, there was more added, there were more things, but that there's actually like metals in the ground inherently in this area, whatever the geology is there, that's really kind of creating this like magnetic energy and this feeling in this location. And so yeah, they just said the whole area feels like heavy, magnetic, it draws you in, it's hard to leave, it's hard to detach. And that was the picture I saw. It was almost like a tornado with like little bits of, well, you could imagine like a magnet, how it like draws little metal filings to it, to its side. And that's what it was showing me. It was just collecting more and more. So it was getting heavier and heavier. And so,
wow.
So they were telling me that like in the old days, right, in older times, the people understood about this geology and the metals there and understood how to work with it. And so, but you know what, I didn't ask, but I get the sense like maybe people didn't live right there proper, because of the energy and because of how strong it was. So they would like travel and come to this spot in particular times of the year. And so they said, actually, it's a very powerful spot to align with earth energies and can be a powerful healing energy.
Wow.
That the ancestors in this area, they would come and gather here, and they showed me that they would stand along the riverbank area and like hold hands in a big circle, because it also energized, like we're all, electromagnetic beings, right? So it was like the power of their energy together, like then amplified this energy in the land as well. And so it would open a portal basically. And I'm like, let me see if that's where we're at. Yeah. So basically they said, well, they would open a magnetic portal. And I'm like, well, what specifically is a magnetic portal? Like I haven't had as many portals as I've come across, like that term hasn't been used before.
Wow.
And so what they were showing me is that there's encoded messages like in the core of the earth could be sent out when this portal was opened. So like any information, knowledge, codes, whatever that would be useful, elsewhere in the universe would be able to be transmitted through this magnetic portal. But also all the codes and information and knowledge and whatever out somewhere else besides Earth could also get drawn in and pulled in and shared with the Earth and the people in this area. So, when this portal opened, it was like this exchange of information, and this magnetic energy in the Earth was part of what was able to facilitate that happening in that area. Let's see, what else did they have to say? So specifically, they said that this would happen on solstices and equinoxes, and I thought probably no coincidence that we're talking the week before the solstice.
Right.
So that, like,
good point.
could energetically work with the with these energies in this area as well, which is really interesting. So they were saying that the sun and the earth, the alignment between the sun and the earth on these important days was what allowed the exchange of information. So it was just like, you know, it was a ritual. Everything lined up. The sun and the moon were aligned. The people would come together. They would open the portal, and all of this exchange of information would happen just naturally in this area. So, and they just said that's how the earth evolved, you know, over millennia, is all of, you know, this opportunity to exchange information on and off the planet. So they said this location still holds these imprints of all of these ceremonies that obviously happened quarterly, you know, year after year after year. And they said there's a location where the land remembers, or where it's honored. And so I had the map up and I was like, can you show me where this is? And immediately, like, the first thing that I saw that they showed me is a place, there's a business called Down to Earth Whole Foods.
Yeah.
Have you been there?
Oh my God, the health food store. Yeah.
But I was like, they showed me right away, like, down to earth. This is where the information came down to earth. So I don't know, like, specifically in that particular exact location, or if they were using that as an example of like this area, because I kind of got the impression like that being near the river was important as well. And it's not very far from the river from what I could tell on the map.
It's right by there.
Yeah, so it just made me laugh when I was like, oh, down to earth, how funny they somehow like tapped into that.
How appropriate, right?
Totally. It gave me a giggle.
That is awesome.
Yeah, the only mention they really made about IBM was just that it says, like, of course they would have been attracted to this location because this location is really good for communication. Obviously, like exchange of information, exchange of communication. So like a business that was tapped into, you know, wanting to do that, wanting to spread or share information or whatever. And were they doing manufacturing there, or
there was, I believe. So there's a lot of buildings. So actually when we first started talking, you mentioned like a big building that like maybe had a spire on it. They had a big building like that has like a clock tower.
Oh, interesting.
So I'm wondering, like, that was what popped into my head when you were saying that. But so they had like a lot of like the engineers worked here, like, and a lot of the brain power stuff was here, and quite a bit of the actual physical manufacturing was done. I don't know a ton about it, so probably any Endicott historian would be over here just like, oh God, what is she saying? But like, I know that they had like, they're in the process right now of knocking down some of those factories. So a lot of it was done here in like, I believe the 50s and 60s. And then they slowly started to move people to the Carolinas. And then as labor became less affordable here, but more affordable overseas, I believe a lot of that went overseas, which of course devastated the Endicott area. And for some reason, we just have not been able to recover. And like some of the towns around us, like I actually don't live in Endicott anymore. I live in a little town called Owego, right close by. And like energetically, it's incredibly different. Even like Binghamton, like it's Endicott is just such a vast whole. And even where like other people are able to kind of like claw their way up a little bit, Endicott just still is unable to like, even like we even received like these big grants from New York State to like improve the area, and we don't even seem able to figure out how to like spend them. Like that's like where we're at with that. So I feel like I kind of took us on like a journey there. You're like, was there manufacturing? And I'm like, no, listen, this is terrible.
That's okay.
No. But so I believe there was. Long story short, there was.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I can relate.
A good amount of manufacturing and like the pollution.
Yeah, the larger valley I live in is similar too. Like there's towns who have recovered really easily, or at least quickly-ish, from having some larger employers, you know, that closed down and left. And then there's like one town in particular that's like, what is the deal with this place? It's the same kind of vibe. I understand there's some places that like you look at the overall community, you know, larger community, and you're like, this place doesn't make sense compared to all of the others. So, and you know, it's always interesting, I always, of course, like my human self, I'm like, well, just, give me the answer and tell me what to tell it, right? And it's like, sometimes they'll say, oh, you can just do this and that'll, get things moving. And this was a little bit more of a like, longer regular process of like what to do and kind of how to work with the energy there. But it's really, impactful. You realize like how much that, I think that was really important. It was this piece about like the land has some kind of memory of what used to
Yeah.
happen here and in this area. And like, it can shift back and it can, things can change, but it's not like, waving the magic wand, and
Yeah, years and years of history.
tomorrow. Yeah.
Right, exactly. It's kind of like as a hairstylist, I'll like tell people, years and years and years of damage on your hair. You've been box dyeing it for 10 years and you've burnt it with curling irons, and you are really hoping today that I can fix this in an hour. It's on a smaller scale, but like I think it's the same idea. All these years and years of history, you and I aren't going to sit here in one conversation like, oh my God, we saved Endicott. Congratulations.
Right. But we can start.
Yes.
Exactly. Same as with hair. Yeah. So, so really, I mean, what they did tell me when I kind of asked, like, what do you want me to do? And there wasn't a lot. They did have me do a couple little things, but they more so wanted me to pass the messages along to you that the river is really the key in shifting the energy in the area. And obviously it's a big feature on the land there that, really borders the entire town, and was also important in kind of how all of this energy worked historically. Because they were telling me it wasn't just, the metals in the ground, but also like how the water flowed and moved through there, like it all worked together. And so they said anything that you do to the river, you do to everyone and everything. So obviously that counts for, positive action and negative action. So if there's pollution that's gone into it, or, certain energies, it's like, the river carries it and amplifies it and moves it, right? So the good news is when you start, really paying attention to the river in a super, positive fashion, like it's going to amplify and move and share that energy as well. And so that was really what they wanted. Was they said, start showing it your love and your kindness, and that the river's asleep and it just needs to be awakened and remembered. So they suggested if you would go, wherever you can have access to the river area, to just go and set your hands on the ground next to the river, and then put your hands in the water. And it really, whenever I'm really showed that, it's this exchange and this communication between really the sun, because it comes into us. And so then we can take those codes that come in, from the solar flares and all of the different things that are happening. And like we're transferring them to the earth and to the water when we touch the ground, touch the water. And they're able to share those codes like back with us that then we can, share out. So it's really simple, but it's actually really powerful. And it really does help to like enliven and awaken the land and the water in a very different way. And so, they just said, put it on your schedule and go visit it like once a week. And then they said, or more, but even if you could go.
And it's neat because I do have, I have like a little bit of access to the river now. Like, even though I live in a different town, it's the same river that runs through my town. And I have a little boat launch right there, and it would actually be really convenient for me to like walk down there. And our river here the poor thing has been so abused. And like, even like relatively recently, I want to say within the past 2 years, they've started dumping fecal matter into it. Why they've decided that was like the ideal course of action. I know. What society contaminates their own drinking water with feces on purpose? Like, I don't understand that.
Right. How would anyone think that wouldn't affect us all in some way? Never mind the water and the soil and, everything.
And normally here, I feel like they sort of listen to like environmentalist groups. Like at one point they wanted to dredge the river, and a lot of environmentalist groups didn't want them to do that because we have like a lot of like really bad flooding here. And they honored that, but then I don't know where that same group was when they were like, cool, we didn't dredge it, but now we're gonna just kind of put some feces into it. And everyone's like, oh, well, that's fine. Like, oh my God.
They didn't tell me this, Maggie. You're telling me that. I'm like, feel free to like drop a couple quartz crystals in, or do like
whatever helps. Or I feel
like vibrating their frequency out into the water.
We're gonna need a dump truck of crystals.
Right. Yeah, share
that's
any good vibes you got. Just share it with the river.
Absolutely. Yeah. Knowing what it's been through, the poor thing, you can imagine if it's like asleep, it's probably just shut itself down. It's like, listen, I'm not being treated with respect. I'm just not participating anymore. You know?
And that happens a lot when I really connect with different places and readings, is that really they've just withdrawn their energy, like from an energetic, connection level. The spirits or the elements or whatever have just kind of gotten to a point where they're like, why would we talk to humans? Like, what? At best, they don't talk to us. At worst, like, they do really horrible things to us. And so a lot of times they're just withdrawn or asleep. I think when I get the sense, or when I'm told asleep, like that to me is more serious than just ignoring, right? Like I think you're right. Like, it's been so treated so badly that it was better to completely, withdraw and go to sleep and not participate at all, from a spirit energy level, than to continue to experience whatever offense has been going on. So I think it'll really appreciate your just your attention. That's the thing more than anything. We think on the grand scale of this river and like how long it's existed in human history. If you start visiting it once a week, like that is a lot, right? Like that is a lot to this this particular location and energy or whatever. And certainly there's probably other people in the area who are working with the water or doing what, anything like that. And so it's just like amplified every person that participates in this way and connects with the water there. So
right. And hopefully there are other people here doing it. It's just, I think like we're also like a little bit stuck in the past here, and kind of a little bit more of a how to say it? We're not like a super progressive area. So it's like any kind of, it's hard to have conversations like this with people that live here. It's like kind of comes up in a hush hush sort of way. Like it was my husband's birthday the other week, and we went out and I ran into a lady who I recognized from around town. I'm like, oh, I always see you walking your dog. And we got to talking, and we had to like sort of like gently ease into like, the idea of like spiritual stuff. I can't remember how it came up. I think she had a tattoo where I was like, oh, and like, but like we had to like kind of look over our shoulders as we're talking about it, because people here think you're nuts if it's anything other than like the very, sort of set in stone traditions that we have here. So maybe she's the kind of person that would work with the water, or like maybe I can like invite people that seem open to it, like, hey, like I'm going to be visiting the river once a week. Maybe that's something other people can do when they have time too.
Yeah. Certainly if you have the opportunity to share it, I think that's amazing. And I find even when I'm doing things in very public locations, sometimes it's a matter, I'll just put out like a little picnic blanket, and I'll just like set some crystals down or whatever it is I'm doing, and I'll just sit there and read a book, right? Like I'm not doing anything active. I'm just kind of like holding the energy, doing my thing. People are like attracted to it, all of a sudden I'll look up my book and I'm like, wow, everyone's real close to me, even though there's a lot of space, right? Or like, oh, kids will come over and play right in front of me. Like it's like the non-intimidating way to like share the vibes, right? Like we don't have to talk about it. We don't have to... And if somebody's interested, they can ask, but they're just like, they can feel the energy that's happening. And so even if they don't know what it is, they maybe aren't open to it, like something about it feels good. And so I figure even when we do things like that, we have the opportunity of like shifting the how somebody else feels and maybe goes about their day in the community, and sharing their energy with other people, or sharing, whatever it is, whatever good feelings and good vibes they picked up. So yeah, sometimes it's just a matter of, yeah, sometimes I'm out there playing my singing bowl, or like, putting my hands on a tree or doing whatever, but but sometimes I'm just sitting, on a blanket with some crystals, and just letting things be. So yeah, so don't be afraid to do that. And
That is awesome. And I do think it's really cool that the river, it's like, it is like a huge feature here, and we're all very aware of the river, and like, but not on that level. And like, so when you said, oh, well, the river kind of holds like a lot of answers, I'm like, I'm like, kind of like, duh, you know what I mean? Like, of course it does. It's like this huge body of water. Like, not everybody has one of those. Just, I know like settlements naturally, like, kind of crop up where water is, and like that's,
right.
but like not everybody has like a big gigantic river, and we all sort of just kind of take it for granted, like, oh, that's just the Susquehanna, like, it's, she's dirty, but we love her, like, but you don't really like think about it. And now it's like, oh yeah, well, that would make sense. And like the people that like occupied the land here before us, like, probably had a lot to do with the river. And then a lot of like the more settler type people that came in like the late 1700s, like they were probably like, just like, oh yay, drinking water, not thinking of it as like this kind of energetic, maybe sort of being type thing. So the fact that you said like, oh yeah, like a lot of this is like, like the river, and I'm like, I can't even occurred to me.
That happens all the time though. I have moments all the time where I'm like, well, duh, but I didn't feel like, until they make the connection. It wasn't
wow. I know. Well, that's why I'm talking to you now, is because you know this stuff and I'm brand new here. So oh, that's so cool.
And they gave you some nice, easy suggestions to work with the energy too. And I think I'm just looking at, there's like one more note here, but I think it's kind of what we were talking about as far as, yeah, like just, the people have taken on that heavy, congested, sleepy energy. And so they said, as the river wakes up, so will the people. So the river has been treated like a commodity and not like a member of the community. So just kind of, a different perspective on the river, which is really, exactly what you're saying. Like, it's there, it has a purpose, it's doing its thing, but it has nothing to do with me. Whereas opposed to, like, oh no, this is a really important member of our community that has a lot
yes, a member of the community. I like how you say that, because I even got like a little goosebumps when you said it. I'm like, oh my God, because it is a member of the community. We wouldn't treat like any of our human community members the way, certainly no one has showed up at my door with like, a whole bunch of like sewage, you know what I mean?
Right. So and you'd be pretty offended if they did.
I'd move. Yeah. I'd go, I would not engage either, like, wow. So that's a really cool perspective. And like, I never would have thought of it that way. And like, here I am thinking like, I'm like, oh man, because we're in such rough shape over here. I'm like, we're going to need like mages and necromancers, and like, it's going to be like World of Warcraft up in here trying to get this place like back to good. And you're like, actually, you could try just like spending some beautiful time with the river. I'm like, okay, that's a lot easier than I thought.
It is. And I always love like how the suggestions are like, sometimes they're more elaborate, but usually it's like, and they understand, like how we can contribute and what we can do. And I think we have discounted how much, our energy matters on the land, and how much power we have to shift and change things by doing really simple things like just putting our hands on the ground and, sharing our love with the earth. And so, yeah, I'll be curious to hear. You'll have to keep me updated as you do that, and see how things are feeling and how the vibe might be shifting around town.
I'm excited to kind of get it started and to like share that with you. And we have a really big festival coming up in the town I live in called the Strawberry Festival. And that brings a lot of cool people, and all of them kind of hang out down by the Riverwalk. So I feel like that might be even like a nice little moment for the river too. Like, just kind of, hey, like, there's so many people here to party with you. And I think that's so cool.
They love that.
There's a whole party. So yeah, so I will definitely, as I do that, I'm gonna make it a point to go and spend time. Should I bring anything like with me? Should I bring like any sort of like, or is like the gift kind of, I'm like getting into human love languages now, but I'm like, should I give the gift of time or sort of like accents? Should I bring a little something or like, what can I do?
Anything that you feel guided to, and in my case, usually I'll kind of walk through my office and be like, I'm going wherever. Is there anyone who wants to come with me? Right. And then sometimes there'll be a crystal that's like, oh, me, like bring me with you, or, the singing bowl or something like that, but never. I think what's really nice is that we can remember that we don't ever, like we have everything we need in our bodies. Ultimately, we can give offerings, we can tone, we can just share our energy with the earth or the water. Like there's a lot we can do just with our own body, and we don't have to bring anything, but sometimes there's other tools that will either enhance it, or there's something of like sometimes these other tools is probably not the best word, right? Like the other consciousnesses, and I say that wrong. These other beings, sometimes they need something from a particular location. So a lot of times they don't even tell me. They're just like, yeah, just bring me there and set me on the ground. I'll do my thing. So I just try and honor that if there's something that they need. But otherwise, as far as just being able to, have that energy exchange with the location, a lot of times all it is just us. You can take your shoes off, put your feet, in the grass or whatnot, so that you get the experience of being grounded and connected with that place as well. And just remembering that like you'll be, pulling that energy in as well. So as you go around town, as you're, doing people's hair, really, like touching a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
Like you'll be sharing that energy as well and like spreading it. And so even just having that picture in your head of like everyone, that you touch, like is spreading that beautiful energy out from the area can really go a long ways to shifting how people feel about an area.
I love that. Oh, I think that's so awesome. And I love that it's just kind of like as simple as like, hey, here's some nice little things that you can do. And just, I'm really grateful that you were able to like take time to look into this and kind of, just point me in the right direction, because it's like I was saying, like, oh yeah, we have this whole giant river here. And I'm like, what's wrong with this place? Like, what's happening? And you're like, have you looked at the river? I'm like, okay, so no, but I'm gonna start.
When we're in the energy, right? So, and this happens in a lot of places, or people's homes, if you have like a really heavy energy or difficult energy in a home a lot of times, but especially in a whole town, is like, if you're in it all the time, it's hard to get any perspective from it. So sometimes it's nice to have somebody, look in from the outside who's not actually physically in the energy. Because even just me tapping in, like I got dizzy, I got tired, I got, like I was feeling those effects just tuned in from a distance. So when you're physically in that energy all the time, like it can be difficult sometimes to have that perspective, because you're just, in the case of your town, you're in that looping, repetitive, like
yes,
kind of
and we do.
magnetic
It's
energy.
like further worsened by the fact that I think we get. If I'm not mistaken, I'll have to like look into this, but we talk about it a lot here. I think we only have 53 days of full sun a year.
Wow.
And I think we get more rain than Seattle. It's just Seattle is a lot bigger, so they get all the credit for being really rainy. But I think we're actually rainier. So then you have like the total lack of vitamin D to add to the pile of like just energetic, kind of spiralic downward, energy. Is like everyone's like, we're tired from that, and there's no sun. You know what? Everybody just be sad. Okay. Like so yeah, that's but I'm glad that there's like, it's not like, well, you're hopeless. Good luck over there. Maybe you should move. Like there's something that we can do.
No, definitely. Yeah, definitely you can work with it.
We're going to be okay. It's going to be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you again for sharing this place. It's always, it's an honor for me to be able to connect with all these different places. I learn something every time. Like I said, I was like, what's a magnetic portal? How does that work differently? So I always learn something too. So that's part of why I enjoy doing these readings as well. So thank you for sharing it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This has been incredible and eye-opening, and I'm like actually excited that I like have something that I can like contribute, and I'm just really, and what a cool way to start kind of my journey into this too, is like, you know, rather than kind of doing something with my own property or my own house, it's like, how about the community that I live in? So this has been just, I'm so grateful to you for taking interest, and really glad I posted that day. I'm like, oh, I'm
Yes.
thinking someone's gonna come out of the woodwork, and you're like, hi, I can help. I'm like, oh.
Well, thank you again. I appreciate it. I appreciate your generosity with me and also with your community. And yeah, keep us up to date. Let us know. I'll send this to you.
Awesome. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.